Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for being here today as we want to talk about a crime that's trending up. Here with me today is our federal partner, Special Agent in Charge, Mr. David Walker, and he'll tell you exactly what our federal partners are doing about this crime, which is, sextortion that is trending up. And basically what we're going to be talking about is our detectives this past year started seeing a trend of people going online, either on a dating app or any type of social media, having a conversation with someone, and then the next thing they know, that person is asking them to send them nude pictures. After the victim sends the person that they're chatting with nude pictures, the next thing they will get is that if you don't send me money, I will post your pictures on social media so everyone will know what you're doing. What we've seen is thousands and thousands of dollars being spent now where the victims do not want their nude pictures posted on social media, so they will pay that. We have one case here in St. Pete where a guy paid back a person more than $10,000 in 2 months so they would not post his picture on social media. And then after he stopped making a payment, the bad person went ahead and did post their social media picture on social media. In June, we sent out a public information about what we saw, the increase in the crime. And then luckily our federal partners picked up on this and they said, this is just not a St. Pete problem, this is a national problem. And Special Agent Walker and his group met with us and we see how we could address this issue. What I'm going to do right now is show you a public service announcement that our federal partners and I have developed.
I got a friend request from this girl that just moved here. She said she saw my profile and thinks I'm hot.
It starts with a few simple texts and maybe a few pictures, then quickly escalates into threats and demands.
They said if I don't send them money, my family and friends will get the pictures.
It's called sextortion. If this is happening to you, don't give in to the predator. Tell a trusted adult. Report it to law enforcement. Remember, you are not in trouble. You are not alone.
So the message that we want to tell everybody out there is, please, hear what I'm saying, please do not post any new photographs on yourself online, because they will live online for a lifetime on social media. With that, I'll introduce you to you, Special Agent in Charge, Mr. David Walker.
Morning, everybody. Chief Holloway, thank you for your partnership and your commitment to keeping the community safe. So what we're seeing nationwide is a rise in organized, what we're calling sextortion, right? And the fact pattern is always very similar. It's generally the victims, and let me be clear, anyone can be a victim, but the traditional victims are young males, often 13 to 17 years old. They get online, they start communicating on these social apps, they encounter who they think is a similar aged female. You know, there's a little bit of a flirting, a back and forth, and then eventually the female asks for revealing photos. At that point, once the male sends it, it's identified that it's not a female, but often an organized criminal gang that is now going to start extorting that young male for money. I think what makes it more insidious is we're seeing the victims are getting younger and younger, right? So 13 years old is not unusual at this case. In the last week alone, the FBI has opened 15 new cases like this. And let me be very clear, this is organized. So there are gangs, oftentimes outside the purview of the United States, that are trolling on the internet looking for these kind of victims to lure them in. Echoing what Chief Holloway said, some best practices. For young people, please do not send naked photos, right? If someone you're communicating with online that you think you've made a friendship is asking for that, I think it's more than likely it may be a criminal gang trying to use that to extort you. And the second thing I would say to parents is have that conversation with your children, right? And that can be an awkward conversation. And you may think, hey, my child's only 13 years old, but anybody who's using the internet could potentially be a victim. And the best way to prevent this crime is to make sure it doesn't occur.
So with that, we'll open it for you if you might have any questions.
Do pictures ever actually get posted? It's
So they do. So a couple things on that. Oh, sorry. A couple things on that. So one, what we've seen is, usually the ask is, hey, send us money, send us gift cards, right? The problem is it doesn't stop. So as soon as you send something, well, then they keep sending it, right? And then they threaten to post, and we've had several situations where they have posted it. And they've sent, these pictures to family members, they've put it online, they've sent it on school message boards. It's gotten so bad that we've actually had several suicides before we were aware of it, because the victims were so distraught.
Can you describe exactly what extortion is in a criminal sense, and when flirtation goes to an actual crime that can be charged by law enforcement?
So once we get to the point where, this is no longer a social engagement, but they're using those photos to force people to pay, with the threat of posting it and embarrass, we've got a sextortion screen.
When you talk about these criminal gangs, is this something within the U.S.? Is this coming from outside the country? These organized criminals that are doing this?
So both. It is not unique to one area, but we have seen, multiple outside the country. I mean, anyone who uses the internet can figure out how to scheme people. We recently had a big arrest, a bunch of individuals out of Nigeria, but it's not exclusive to Nigeria anywhere, right? There are predators on the internet that are always looking to find victims and shake them for money.
As far as the victims that you're talking about, are these in the Bay Area, or do they just reach around Central Florida, or can you talk about the geography of it here?
So, I mean, victims could be anywhere, right? So the internet is everywhere. So there are victims here, in St. Pete, in the Bay Area, but there are also victims nationwide. This is not an issue limited to St. Pete. It is truly an American threat.
Can you talk about any numbers in the Bay Area, or is it just one case in St. Pete, or are you aware of any others in the?
No, there's 15 alone that we've looked at in the last week here. So you can imagine how many there are nationwide, right?
Do you find that once people pay, do they then want more money after that, or is it usually like a one-time thing?
So we're dealing with criminals, right? It's not a one-time pay. In fact, we've got multiple cases where I can think of one case that I've heard where I think it was a 15-year-old male and he had paid $15,000. And it was not at once. It was like, hey, we need another $300. Like, once they get their hooks into these victims, especially victims that are embarrassed and they're young and they don't want to come forward and they don't know what to do, they'll just keep trying to suck them dry.
Chief, can you explain for someone out there who is a victim of this, that it is okay to come forward, that they are a victim, and how do you tell people to get over the embarrassment that they have having filed a police report?
And that's a great question. You're right. Get over being embarrassed, because they're taking money from you, and they're going to keep taking money from you until you say you don't have any more money, and they're going to post the pictures anyway. So what we want you to do is, once you realize that you are a victim to this, is contact your police department or contact the federal government, and as I said, save everything. Save all the information that you've been sending to bank accounts, because we're going to need all that so we can trace the person. And like the special in charge is saying, and for the parents to have that tough conversation so the child can go and say, hey, Mom, look, this person has done this to me. Because we've seen at our department, we've seen as young as 9 years of age a kid being extorted.
Do the pictures ever actually get scrubbed? Can you get the money back? I mean, any of those, is there any is there any recovery from sending your pictures out?
And like I said, once you post your pictures online, they're online for life. You're not going to get those pictures down. As far as getting the money back, I don't think you're going to get the money back.
So, I mean, think of it as like this is a true national problem, so it's going to take a national solution. So like Chief is saying, we're going to have victims in the Bay Area, but a lot of times the subjects aren't here, right? And so we're going to try to make those arrests, and when we make those arrests, we're going to try to do asset recovery, right? But, it doesn't always work that way. We don't always get it back. And for the victim that's paid and been embarrassed, I mean, getting their money back is probably the least restitution, right?
You were saying it's almost always males that fall victim to this. Are there a lot of female victims as well across the country or even Bay Area?
I mean, I think anyone who uses the internet can be a victim, right? It seems like the vast majority we're seeing is young males. They seem to be more vulnerable to falling into this. I don't know why. That just seems to be the demographic that most often gets caught up.
Do you have, even if it's just like a ballpark, do you have like a estimated percentage of
say like, you know, in the region, we've seen it increase X%?
So I can't give you a hard number, but what I can see is a huge spike, right? Like, you know, it went from 1 or 2 cases to suddenly, like, we're seeing a flurry of cases. And I think that's probably a combination of, again, some of these criminal organizations getting more organized and also realizing, hey, this is a pretty good racket, and also people starting to report it and realizing, okay, and maybe that's the point of getting it out there is, hey, if this is happening to you, let us know because we want to help.
A lot of people, when they do things online, they think that they can't be traced, they can't be found, they're hidden. How do you trace somebody, especially to Nigeria? And what are your possible, you know, I know they're going to be extradited, what are your possible handlings or charges? What we do?
So, I mean, I'm certainly not a cyber expert, but watching how they, you know, they're going to track the IPs, they're going to go back through the servers. I mean, you know, just typical cyber forensics. And then a lot of it is going to be working with those foreign governments, right, to get extradition orders, to work with them to get charges. But we have had some success with it. I will say it's a lot harder when it's not as a criminal in the United States, but that doesn't mean we can't get it done.
Can you talk about just, sometimes this also happens with people, I know a lot of times when we see these cases, extortion cases come through, the arrest, it always seems to be a lot of times the person knew the person from either a relationship or a dating, and they gave those pictures out via text or ever, and then they get turned around to use it, but the people don't want to come forward because of the embarrassment that they don't want that message that someone's extorting them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, sextortion takes different forms, right? So you can have that form where it was you know, a former partner, a former individual you had a relationship, and now afterwards, you know, you see that. But what we're talking today isn't really that, right? These aren't people that necessarily knew each other. This isn't high school classmates that were having a relationship and one's embarrassing the other. This is somebody who's meeting somebody online who is falsely putting themselves out as being a female and then luring them, and for the specific reason of extortion.
Have you seen any arrests made?
Excuse me?
Have you seen any arrests made ever?
Of subjects?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How recently?
Within the last month.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a growing problem, but it's one that you know, we're having some success. Like I think last month, I think 2 individuals out of Nigeria were arrested, right? And I think the more we do this and the more we uncover, the more success we're going to have arresting people.
Are they ever local arrests?
There are people in the United States who get arrested, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is not just a...
Tampa?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of someone in Tampa, but that doesn't mean it hasn't happened.
Is it possible to partner with high schools through the school districts to try and get, you know, where is this PSA going to get out, and we can talk about that? You know, we leave it to the parents, but the kids see stuff at school, and there's greater numbers there.
So hopefully you'll get it out to everyone that's watching your channel. The other thing will be posted on our Facebook page, and we'll be doing links to everyone else. So we want that information to get out to everyone. And you asked a question earlier, not just one case. Since January, we've seen 11 juveniles and 25 adults, January to now. So you're only just talking St. Pete, so just imagine throughout the Tampa Bay area. And those are the people that have reported to us. So if you get this information out to everyone, hopefully the parents will have that hard conversation with their kids. And hopefully the people that are out there using the internet will not post nude photographs of themselves because someone's asking for them.
What's your message to anybody doing this?
In time, you will get caught. Thanks to our federal partners, we've got a lot of resources and assets that are available to us, and we will find you. It may take time, but we will find you. But also, the people that are being extorted need to call us, because if you don't call us, we can't solve these crimes. Thank you, everyone.